Why are you having such a hard time getting your script past development and into pre-production? Do you need to fix your protagonist or your pitch? Or is yours a problem of not having the right agent to open doors on your behalf? To answer these questions, let's consider how the development side of the entertainment industry has evolved over the last 20 years and generate some strategies to withstand and conquer development hell. To illustrate our example, meet Felix, an aspiring screenwriter, and let's see how the process of actualizing his movie has changed from 2002 to 2022. Let's start by considering what might have happened to Felix in 2002. Back then, Felix writes a bank heist thriller script. Then he, or his agent to be precise, sends this script to Ms. Movie Star's agent. Someone at her agency reads the script and, against all odds, recommends it. So Ms. Movie Star is couriered the script and she likes it too. She agrees to meet Felix to request certain changes. Perhaps she didn't believe her character would agree to do a heist so easily, and she didn't like the idea that her character smoked cigarettes, or she had more general thoughts about how to improve the quality of the script. But if Felix is motivated to win the attachment of Ms. Movie Star, he could make those changes and she'd attach herself to the project. Then, Felix's agent would pitch the project and submit the script to development departments at studios and production companies, and the process would continue. Some might say, we like Miss Movie Star, but don't think her box office draw is enough to make this film viable in the marketplace. Others might have creative notes, or want to focus on attaching Mr. Movie Star in addition to Ms. Movie Star. If Felix got lucky enough to score a meeting, Mr. Movie Star would have his own notes about the script, and maybe sometimes they would conflict with Ms. Movie Star's notes. Maybe he loves the idea that the characters are so adrenaline-fueled that they agree to do a heist after one meeting, and Felix would start getting migraines, but remained fueled with the hope that his movie was closer to the finish line than before. So he juggles all the notes, generates a new draft, and manages to win Mr. Movie Star's attachment while keeping Ms. Movie Star on board. Then, a company's development department might want to move forward, but now, because Ms. Movie Star and Mr. Movie Star are only attached, in other words, they've really only committed on paper that they're interested in the film, nothing more, they'd still have to negotiate pay rates and schedules, and any number of logistical issues could upend the plan to cast Mr. and Ms. Movie Star. Let's say the only time Mr. Movie Star can film is April, and the only time Ms. Movie Star can film is June, and the studio will only commit to funding if they're both included in the cast, and since schedules won't work, the whole project is sent back into development hell. Now maybe that sounds like a headache and a heartbreak combined for Felix, and it often was. But I actually think it was a better system than the current one for filmmakers, at least in the sense of shepherding quality stories through development. Because now, in 2022, if Felix or his agent approached Ms. Movie Star's agent to submit his script, he'd likely be told, "Are you making an offer? And can you show proof of funds that you're able to back that offer?" If Felix says, "I'm only seeking Ms. Movie Star's attachment. I don't have the funds to make an offer yet, but if you give me the attachment, I can go find the financing," the agent would likely reply, "Ms. Movie Star doesn't do attachments anymore. This is 2022, not 2002. So why the cultural change in the business? Some agents feel it's not their job to help Felix set up his project, but also, making Ms. Movie Star available for attachments had its downsides too, financially. For example, let's say Big Badass Studio has a thriller film, and they wanted to pay Ms. Movie Star $2 million to be in the film, and her agent says, "No way, she's worth $5 million to that film." Then, some whippersnapper at Big Badass Studio suddenly realizes they have a negotiating counterpoint. That whippersnapper says, "Hey, your client, Ms. Movie Star, is attached to Felix's bank heist script. That entire movie is supposed to cost $5 million, and yet it's still having trouble getting financing, so there's no way your client is worth $5 million to our thriller movie. To which her agents say, "We're not letting Ms. Movie Star attach herself to any more indie films ever." So now, in 2022, that's why so many aspiring writers find that avenue of seeking name attachments blocked. So what are the workarounds? First of all, I'm not an entertainment attorney and I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not advocating for any one of these particular workarounds. I'm just telling you some of what I'm hearing from filmmakers out there getting their movies made. One workaround is for an aspiring writer to get represented by one of the top-tier agencies that package film and TV shows. You can imagine a situation where Felix is repped by the same agency that reps Ms. Movie Star. Now he's aligned himself with the financial interests of the agents that control the talent. Naturally, that's no easy feat, but people do it. One drawback to this approach is that it places Felix into a submissive, dependent position with his own agents and diminishes the importance of any growing creative kismet like what might have happened between Felix and Ms. Movie Star back in the old days of 2002. A second workaround is to become great at raising funds without star name attachments. So let's say we don't have just any aspiring writer, but we have aspiring trust fund baby writer. He's worth $50 million and is willing to put up $5 million of his own money to finance the bank heist film. When Ms. Movie Star's agent asks aspiring trust fund baby writer, "Are you making an offer?" he replies, "Sure, why not? I'll offer $1 million." And then aspiring trust fund baby writer has real leverage over the talent. Maybe he doesn't need to listen to script notes, because if he doesn't like her script notes, he can say goodbye and take his $1 million and get the phone answered by a different agent. Once the agents can see aspiring trust fund baby writer has the means to back up his offer, they're far more likely to want Ms. Movie Star to take that part, and any concerns about quality are mitigated by the promise of a good paycheck. So maybe Ms. Movie Star gives only 1 or 2 notes and is satisfied to be well paid. Even if she only gives 1 note, maybe, unlike Felix, aspiring trust fund baby writer feels aggrieved, walks away from Ms. Movie Star, and hires Ms. Untalented Influencer, or his girlfriend. After all, he doesn't need Ms. Movie Star's star power to finance his film. In a sense, because of the way the culture of the entertainment industry has evolved, aspiring trust fund baby writer has the leverage to bypass the development process altogether, and that's perhaps not a good thing. A third workaround I'm hearing about is a risky move to hire a famous actor with funds you have, in hopes that their presence will generate the additional funds needed to actually make the movie. So let's say Felix doesn't have $5 million in the bank, but he can raid his 401k and come up with $100,000. Maybe he can't hire Movie Star with $100,000, but he can make an offer to Ms. Respectable Actress with those funds for 5 days of work on his movie. His offer, backed by proof of funds, will prompt Ms. Respectable Actress to read a script, and if she wants to do the project, she'll agree to make herself available for 5 days of shooting in November of this year. Here's the hard part. Felix can now legitimately tell people that he's hired Ms. Respectable Actress for a role in his movie, and can attempt to raise the rest of the $5 million at that point. But if he doesn't inspire other investors to give him the balance of the budget he needs in these pay-or-play scenarios, Felix owes Ms. Respectable Actress the $100,000 whether the movie gets made or not. A fourth workaround involves filmmakers leveraging new players in the digital realm like Slated, which connects screenwriters, producers, distributors, and talent. On Slated's site, filmmakers and others all receive a score or ranking as individuals that allegedly indicates the relative strength of that person's standing within the industry. But of course, the system must be put together based on algorithms related to produce credits, rather than personal interviews and portfolios, so this individual score seems to be quantitative rather than qualitative. Actors can be ranked too and attached to projects just like the old days, but many profiles focus on the behind-the-camera professionals like the director, producer, sales agent, and distributor. If agents won't allow their acting clients to attach themselves to films in development, it makes a good deal of sense to highlight the other professionals involved when seeking investment. The site, for a fee, also provides script coverage, and filmmakers can choose whether they want to highlight their script score or not, presumably depending on whether the feedback was positive enough to impress potential colleagues. I think Slated makes some sense strategically for filmmakers, especially in context of the entertainment industry customs today. At least it gives some mechanism for feedback and some mechanism for publicly gathering a team so that a film can prove itself. But the real solution to development hell may be a bit deeper. What are the ways that you can be less dependent on movie stars and production companies altogether? Can you lower the budget? Can you cast unknowns? Is it more important to make money off the film or just to get it done? A little soul searching might prompt new ideas and open new avenues for success. At FateLink, we are questioning our own principles and values to come up with some fresh new options about how to successfully develop and fund films. But we're still in process, and I don't have the answers just yet. Look for more on this topic in future videos, and until then, remember Mark Twain's advice: go to heaven for the climate, hell for the company. So if you find yourself in development hell, remember, you're not just trapped on a phone call with any asshole. You're being rejected by a fascinating cosmopolitan asshole. You'll have a story to tell about it, and that may start the whole process over again. If you enjoy diving into the development process for movies then and now, please give us a like and subscribe to our FateLink channel.